Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Selling. Now, my name is Sean Rhodes. I'm the Chief Sales Sergeant here at Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, if it's your first time with us or your 78th time with us, that might be how many episodes we're in at this point, you need to know that we believe that hope is not a sales strategy. And so we are here many times a week just to make sure that you learn the systems, you learn the things that you need so that we can bring the lessons of the battlefield into the boardroom, into your business, so we can increase the performance of your salespeople, your own personal sales results, and of course, the overall success of your team. Now, in this Bulletproof Selling series, it's an interview series. Since episode one, I've been bringing people on that I know I had something to learn from as a sales professional. I don't bring anybody on here that I don't think I can learn anything from. I don't have enough time for that. So every single guest that we've had on, whether they were a best-selling author, a Hall of Fame speaker, a consultant, a trainer, or they were actually out there actively managing sales teams, we've sat down with them and built a sales system. And that's exactly my promise to you today. We're going to be building a sales system with our guests that you can use no matter the size of your teams or the size of your goals. Now, across my work, I get to see a lot of different business models, a lot of different ways that salespeople go about their jobs. And there's always one piece of any sales cycle, any sales process where you actually have to show the prospect, hey, here's the thing that I'm offering to sell you. Here's what it does. Here's the value that it has. Well, so many salespeople wait way too long to begin presenting that information to the folks that they're selling to. And that means that they're losing so much opportunity along the way because think about it from your perspective as a buyer of many things. If someone doesn't add value to your life immediately by helping you better understand something, helping you solve a problem, it doesn't matter how great their product or service is. If that sales cycle is too long, you're probably going to lose interest. So that's exactly why I wanted to bring on Adir Ben-Yehuda today. He runs a very interesting sales model. He's going to tell us about how he actually takes demos and rethinks them, re-engineers them in a way that produces much better results. So Adir, welcome, sir, to Bulletproof Selling.
Thank you. It's great to be here. And you nailed the last name. That's a great job there, Sean.
I know, man. It's one of those names. I mean, like Sean, for instance. There's 18 ways to spell it. Most people get it wrong the first time, so I've just gotten used to it over 3 decades. But
That's awesome.
Adir, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, your journey in sales. I know you didn't start off doing what you did, so give our listeners a little bit of a background into how you got to where you are.
Sure. So I've been in sales for the better part of my life, 15 years. Started as as just a seller in a small company and grew with that. In the last kind of 7 years, I've been running sales organizations for fairly new products, right? New companies, new startups that you need to have a lot of work around market education. That's my passion. I don't know if it's a good thing to say that's my passion because it could be hard. It could be hurtful also. But one of the things that I've been doing is leading those sales organizations from zero in revenue to seven figures and more in a few years. My recent role here at Walnut, I'm one of the founding members. I lead everything that is go to market for Walnut. And in the last, I think, 2 years, we brought the company from no clients, zero in revenue, no employees, to over 250 clients that are adopting the product and have in a scalable way, from companies like Dell, Adobe, NetApp, to smaller startups and smaller organizations.
Love it, man. And so tell me a little bit about then what Walnut does, because you and I had a brief discussion about it, but I'd love for you to, share it with the folks out there listening, most of whom are salespeople or sales leaders. What do you do to differentiate yourself from all the other software platforms that they're being pitched every day?
Yeah, so I think it's kind of funny, but if you look at sales tech, and in the last 5 to 10 years, right, a lot of companies are going to that direction. And one of the things that came to mind when we started the company is like, no one is actually talking about the prospect. Everyone is talking about, hey, how the account executive could be better, how the account executive could be more efficient. No one is actually saying, how can we change the experience that a prospect is getting during the sales process, right? So
Mm,
Walnut came into this game and started to think about what's the experience that a prospect is getting from the buying process. And you started the conversation here talking about like the demo, right? And the demo experience. This is one thing that the prospect is understanding if it's a go or a no go. But the problem is being held hostage throughout the sales process, and that's a challenge that one is trying to change, right? So we have the ability to actually create a full replica of your product that is fully editable and customizable, which makes it more like interesting and more fitted to the prospect needs, but also have the ability to slice and dice this and use it as a product, a succinct product demonstration throughout the sales cycle, from the top of
Mhm.
the funnel throughout the rest of the funnel.
And that's unique because, and I've dealt with a lot of organizations, companies that sell three, four, $500,000 pieces of equipment, and that product demo is where the deal is made or broken. And that, of course, has to wait for a long time. You got to schedule the appointment. You got to get people out to the demo site. There's all kinds of things that you got to do to get that demo done. But what
Yep.
you're saying is, let's start slicing and dicing the demo. We may not be able to physically deliver them a piece of machinery to work with, because not everybody's in that model, not everybody can travel. But if I can take the benefit of whatever it is that I sell and split it up earlier throughout the sales cycle, so that the minute that I'm in touch with that prospect, my very first outreach, I'm adding value to their lives and essentially starting the product demo from there. That's
Yep.
really innovative. So walk me through how that changes things from a prospect perspective, because I know that you're very prospect focused. Walk me through how it changes for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's talk for a second about the new prospects. Let's talk about, first of all, the new decision makers that are in the organizations. Most of them are, millennials, Gen Z, and so on and so forth, right? We're used to buying things differently. We used to get things like immediately, right? So that's the joke that I always like to tell is like, Sean, do you like pizza? I
Sure.
hope you can. Yeah, I hope you would say yes, right? And then we tell you, let's get pizza, but let's not use Uber Eats or DoorDash. Let's call the pizza place. You'd be like, no, it's like, I don't want to do it, right? I want to do it on my own terms when I want to do it. So that's when we start looking at prospects today and buyers today, decision makers, they have a different way of how they buy things, and they've adopted, and they want B2B sales to be adopted to their needs. So let's start from that premise. Now, when you look at a prospect today, let's look at the journey that he has. He goes on a website, he probably reads a few white papers and stuff like this, which no one reads, don't tell anyone anymore.
Right.
And then he needs to go, and he knows he needs to put his like email and phone number. He goes on a call with an SDR. An SDR goes on a call with him for 30 minutes and doesn't give him anything about the company, just ask him a bunch of questions to see if he's qualified, right? He's
Hmm.
effectively been held a hostage because he wanted to resolve one pain point, and now he needs to talk about with an SDR. Then you have an handover to an account executive. An account executive asks you a bunch of more questions, and you still don't see the product. You need to be qualified to get a demo and understand if you can resolve your pain point. So until we get to the demo stage with a solution engineer, we go through 3 or 4 calls overall. That's just plain rude. It's not only just plain rude, it also doesn't fit the way buyers are buying today and the way they buying in their B2C world, for that matter. What Walnut can change, and what we're effectively doing this with over 250 organizations today, 250 organizations today, is we're effectively changing their behavior, and we're empowering SDRs to show a succinct product demonstration of 6 screens. Now, a lot of people will tell me, well, that's a problem. SDRs are not like they're in early in their career. They don't know a lot about the product. That's great. We have the ability to actually put it in guardrails and make sure that
Yeah.
we'll show the exact screens. You expose this to the prospect. And by exposing to the prospect, you gain 2 things. The prospect is happy. He gets a better experience because he understands if you can resolve his pain point or not. But also, you as an organization, you get better qualified leads, because the prospect on the other hand doesn't just answer questions that he knows he needs to answer, right, for that matter. He actually sees the product, he understands the value, and then he can say it's a no or no go for me very early on. And you save a lot of time, you save a lot of resources. Now when it goes down the funnel a little bit more, you actually can show something that is more customized and personalized, and you can
Hmm.
take out of your language the words, imagine it was your need here, imagine that you have your own data here, but actually show him something that is customized and personalized to his own need. And by that, Sean, we're with most of the organizations we work today, we shave off 2.5 to 3 weeks in the sales cycle.
Wow. And now that's something that I wanted to ask you about. This is a question that we ask every single guest that we've ever had on this show, which is around hope. So my background being in the military, we did everything we could to remove hope We did that through systems because it was life or death for us, and might be the life or death of a business for a salesperson.
Yeah.
So, where do you see salespeople relying on hope more than they should, and how they deliver value earlier in the sales cycle?
I mean, salespeople should rely on hope all the time. Otherwise, it's a very hard job, right? Yeah, you need to be very positive bias to that matter. But I think one of the things. Let's talk about the void that happens. You finish a call with someone, right? And like, how many people here in the audience heard this word? Is like, just send me your PDF. Just send me a one pager. I'll get back to you. I'm still waiting for. This prospect knows who I'm talking about for 10 years. I'm not
Oh yeah,
gonna,
me too.
right? So you have this huge void, and that's where hope comes into play. And what effectively we can do with Walnut, and that's one of the things that we want to empower salespeople at the end of the day, is when you finish this call, you can actually send the prospect something that is valuable, like essentially a container of your product demo that you just showed him, and you can start seeing engagement levels from the prospect side, right? We get a very granular in analytics, and you can see how much time they played on the demo, where they clicked, if they shared it with other people in the organization. And if they haven't, it's probably not going to be a deal. Let's move on. But if they have, you know, to ask the exact points and kind of direct the conversation. And at the end of the day, that's where salespeople should stop leaning on hope for this void part, right? Like, you have all those tools that, like, someone opened my email, but that's all that you would get probably, right? And that's a limitation of that's where hope ends, right? All
Yeah.
of a sudden, what we want to enable and what we are enabling salespeople is the ability to see where people engage with the product, how, and with whom else within the organization.
So it sounds like through delivering value earlier in the sales cycle, we're increasing engagement, we're increasing callback, we're increasing all kinds of things, and shortening our overall sales cycle. So let's build a sales system around this, because obviously we're going to make sure everybody's got the opportunity to connect with you over at Walnut. But I want to give our salespeople something that just allows them to kind of mine the thousands of sales calls that you've had to make in your career and what you've learned over this process. And then, of course, if they want to take it to the next level, they really want to put some burners on it, they're going to need Walnut. They're going to need a platform like yours. So when we talk about building sales systems, it's trimming hope away from a sales strategy. And I completely agree. Without a positive mindset, if you show up on a sales call depressed, boy, it's just not going to end well. I don't care how cheap your product is or how in demand it is. If you don't like what you do, prospects are going to know. And
Yep.
so combine positive mindset with a process that I know I can use. Just like when someone signs up with Walnut, they know I'm going to get these things. It's going to help me in these ways. So when trimming hope away from the sales strategy, we use the acronym TRIM because it's easy, right?
Yep.
TRIM. T is trigger. So if I'm going to consider adding value earlier to a prospect during my sales cycle so that I can increase callbacks, I can increase engagement and shorten my overall sales cycle, when do I pull that system off the shelf? Is it when I'm on the phone with a prospect for the first time? Is it as I'm developing my lead list? When would you recommend salespeople actually begin to map out how I'm going to add value to this prospect earlier?
I think it's a great question. I think let's talk about two individuals here. Let's talk about sales leaders, and then about salespeople, right?
Okay.
And I think when it comes to sales leaders, they need to understand that that's the expectation from a prospect, and they need, from the first moment, from the first engagement that a prospect is engaging with you, you need to provide value. That's how the call. That's how the entire relationship is going to be set, right? Having a call with an SDR for 30 minutes for what you call a discovery call doesn't add value for your prospect, period. It adds only value for you. And by the way, it doesn't add a great value for you as well, right? So that's the first part. The second part is when I understand when it comes to the handover between the SDR and the account executive, the first engagement with the account executive should be knowledgeable. It shouldn't be a discovery. It should go and trigger the value points and say, Sean, you don't have a lot of time. You don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. I want you to sign the contract as quick as possible. I understood the exact pain point you have. Let's focus on this, right? And oftentimes, a lot of sales individuals, even if they're passionate about the product, they like the product, they will go on every nitty gritty. It's like, here's a drop down of our product, which I don't know, like what I'm talking about. And I guess, and I don't want to use the old cliche of like talk with values. It's not even talk with values, because talking with values is talking about your own product. Talk
Mhm.
with the value of resolution of the pain point of your prospect. Learn the pain point of your prospect from the SDR based on what the prospect seen on a first call on your product, and go on this call with an intent, one intent only: resolve the pain point that Sean came in with to the call, right? And that's when you should start triggering the value point.
Love it. So we got to define what that pain point is, and without having had a conversation with that prospect before, because a lot of people do have the benefit of an SDR. Some of us don't, though. We're just calling up. It's all on one person, right? Maybe that salesperson is responsible for developing that account from beginning to end. So we may not know the specific pain point and how it exactly manifests, but we can probably come up with some generalizations from what we know about the industry, about that job title, about past clients that we've had, and that allows us to step in there at least having a target to shoot at. But then I'm curious to know from you, before we move off of the trigger stage, what manner of prep work do I need to do before I really start reaching out to prospects to add value sooner, once I know what that pain point is?
Yeah, I think you need to understand, first of all, the profile of your current clients, right?
Mm,
And by understanding the profile of your current clients and the journey of becoming a client, that's something that you can utilize after in order to surface this when you do an outreach and when the prospect comes in. It doesn't matter if it's inbound or from cold outreach, right? That's the first part. So you're kind of making some assumptions there. The second part is I would go and follow those people on LinkedIn and different kind of places and start understanding where they're asking questions, where they're engaging. Because again, if they came to your website or if they answer your cold outreach, it means they have a pain point they need to resolve, period. They don't just want to do, otherwise they're tire kickers and that's a different story, right? But it means they have a pain point that they need to resolve. And if you'll get some information about where they engage, where they ask questions, that's going to be helpful for you, right? So it's kind of marinating those two pieces of information and then going on a call and saying, I've noticed that you've engaged with those kind of topics, and based on the data that we have from current profile and clients, can I assume that's your main pain point? Can we talk about it, and can I assume that's your main pain point and move on from there?
I love it. And of course, if you have any history with this person or with their company, maybe you know what they've purchased in the past, what level of product that was, when it was purchased, whether it was purchased with a warranty or with cash, or was it financed. All manner of things could come into play that would allow you to then better prepare for that first conversation. So you could start adding more specific value instead of, like you said, turn it into a half-hour discovery call, which doesn't serve them. So
Correct.
we've got the trigger element. Now we're going to make this thing repeatable. So what we noticed in the military was, whether we were clearing houses or rolling into a new country, we had steps that we would follow, and there were consistent steps each time. So that way we could innovate when the battlefield inevitably changed. I've never seen a sales plan survive contact with a prospect. It's good to have the plan, but prospects are always going to throw something in the works that's going to make you think, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
now I have to kind of think on my feet here. So what are those 4, 5, 6 steps that I can execute in a repeatable fashion? Once I've got my trigger, I've done my research, now I'm reaching out to the prospect so I can make sure that I'm adding value sooner than every other salesperson in my industry.
That's a great point, and I think that's a place that it's a mindset, but the second thing is where Walnut could definitely help with, right? It's enabling. A lot of people think, and it's a changing industry based on the prospect, but a lot of people think that if you kind of keep the product conversation or the demo conversation to later on, I will keep the prospect hostage, and then he would like to talk with me. I would go on the opposite way. For the first outreach, you can go ahead and say, I've assumed this pain point. This is based on our profile. Here is a succinct product demonstration of 5 clicks, 6 clicks that can show you how you can resolve this. Does it help you, right? And that's something that you can do in a very repeatable way and see the conversion rate around those kind of things, right? So imagine when you go and you do a BDR outreach, I send it to a few people that I know, I put them in the bucket of a specific pain point, and then I'm sending them my product in a contained environment. I have them engage with it, and time again, I can see the conversion rate going up. By the way, organizations that have adopted Walnut that way, seen a conversion rate of 25% in meetings set. Because
Mhm.
again, you're putting the prospect in the center. You're telling them, here is my product, see it, everything is out there. I believe in my product. I believe that my product can help you resolve the trigger, the pain point that I've assumed here, right? And that's where you see the higher conversion rates.
Love it. So we've got the trigger, we've got making it repeatable, which nothing that we've mentioned so far here has, like cracked the world open in sales. This is really fundamental stuff in the field of sales, but we've stepped away from it because of all the technology available, all the
Yeah.
cool stuff I can do to make me look lost focus on we're really here for the prospect. So I love that you're very prospect centered. That's a wonderful way to be. So we've got the
Yeah.
trigger, making it repeatable. Now the I in trim is where it's going to get a little fun because we noticed throughout all the tours I was able to do in the military across all branches in the US, 24 countries, that as soon as we figured out how to do something well, the people that we were out there competing against, our enemy, would adapt very quickly too. Now, we're not obviously in a battle with our prospects, but the market is going to change constantly. The economy is changing here in the US. We're experiencing a recession like we haven't seen in 40 years. Things are shifting all around us. So if we don't improve what we're doing, then
Mhm.
what worked in 1985 just ain't going to play very well here in 2022. So, what would you begin doing to improve this system? Not necessarily measuring it, not figuring out is it closing more, is our conversion rate getting higher, but how do I improve what I'm doing to make sure I'm keeping up with market changes in my industry?
I think that's a great question, but you mentioned not necessarily measuring it, but I think it starts from there, right?
Well, that's the M in trim. We're going to save the M. That's the
Okay.
last piece.
So
We will get to measurement. Yes, sir.
no, because I'm the way I'm thinking about it is like let's measure it, but let's talk about like the improvement part of things, right? And I think one of the
Yeah.
mistakes you're talking about the army, and I think the army is a great thing. I've served in the army also for 3 years, right? And I think one of the mistakes is when you go into battle, you're in the battle. You don't think about anything else. It's very hard for you to look at things from the side and kind of judge yourself if what I'm doing is right, right? Because you're in this. And I think one of the things that I would do constantly to improve, and that's the things that I do all the time also in our sales organization, is I'm keeping time in the evenings to look at things that in a more strategic and more critical way and saying, is what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis in a repeatable way is right or wrong? Is what I'm doing is actually effective or wrong, right? And I think the main thing as a sales leader and also as a salesperson is to always be agile and be open-minded and judge yourself time and time again in a repeatable way, by the way, and see if what I'm doing is right or wrong. Because it's very easy to get drawn to the day-to-day mundane and say, well, it's good, I'm in my comfort zone, right? And I think that's one of the reasons we're starting to talk with a lot of organizations from the prospect side of things. Because effectively, like we looked at the market and we realized that it's great. You have a method. And when I talk with a lot of salespeople and a lot of sales leaders, they think I'm crazy. Like, you're gonna show a prospect the demo on the first call. I'm like, yes, what's the problem? Like, why not? Like, do you want to get the sell in or you want to get someone like to go with you for 3 months? It doesn't like, why not? And that's when improvement comes, when you kind of like put against yourself and you kind of challenge yourself every day in terms of what you want to do, and you save time. Even put it in your calendar. Challenge myself. See what I've done today, right? So that's one of the improvement points that I would say.
Love it. And then one of our past guests gave us the great idea for improving almost any system. Talk to the people that you did convert. So talk to current customers and ask, what was the thing that really caused you to jump on board with us? Was it the fact we did the demo earlier? Were we talking about your pain points when nobody else was? What would you recommend doing with current customers so that you can improve the next outreach you're doing?
I think one of the things that you have to do all the time with current customers, regardless, is to understand where you fit in the puzzle. You bought my product. How did I change your overall perception on your go-to market? How did I change your overall, process that you had with my product itself? And understand, once you understand where you fit in the puzzle, where you fit, or how you impacted that balance sheet of your prospect,
Mhm.
then you can go back with some real data, with real understanding, and resolve real pain points after on, right? So don't think, I would sum it up in one sentence. Don't think tactical when you go and research with current clients. Think strategic from their point of view and how you made a strategic impact. By the way, that's also how you become a must have and not a nice to have for organizations.
I love it. I love it. All right, so we've gotten the trigger, repeatable, improvable. Now let's move into measurable, because with this system, I'm doing something different than I did before, and I need to know, is it getting me better results? Now, for
Yep.
most salespeople, the first thing they're going to measure is closed deals, gross revenue. That's too easy though, because that could come from a lot of different things. So, how do I specifically measure the success of earlier product demos, adding value earlier along the way?
Yeah. I think let's start with leading indicators, right? It's understanding. It's some. some basic things that we need to look at, right? If you measure yourself, not the reaction you get, you need to understand how many emails are you sending a day? What's the level of outreach, right? Because at the end of the day, it's physics. I've tried to fight with the numbers for 10 years. It always comes down to the same conversion rate, right? It doesn't it's physics. So you need to play big numbers and you need to measure yourself from that perspective. Did I send 100 emails today or I sent 2 emails today? If I send 2 emails today, my conversion rate is going to be 10%. You can do the math, right? But then 100, you can do that's the first part. And it's really pure physics. It's forces of nature, I would call them even. Then the other part would be to understand measurement in terms of engagement with the links and like the demo you've sent very early on the call itself. And the other part would be time spent on those demos, because all of a sudden you have this tool in the void and you understand what's the level of engagement with the prospect. And the third part would be, after you finish the first call, is understand if there are other people coming within from the organization. So you can effectively measure a few things, right? The level of involvement by time spent on the materials you had sent to the prospect itself. But also, is it really important for him that he's involving colleagues right now? And it's going to be an initiative across the organization, and kind of find this ratio, right? I don't want to go to the cliche measurements, but I think those are two new measurements that people need to start measuring more, and kind of qualitative measurements that can help you understand and predict if this is a deal that is going to move forward. By the way, it can help you also predict if you're going to close this deal in just 5K or maybe 20K if you have more people involved within the organization.
Absolutely. So that's a complete sales system for driving value earlier, with the results of shortening your sales cycle and increasing engagement along the way. So it's not just you always reaching out, "Hey prospect, you ready to buy? You ready to buy? Didn't talk to you last week, you ready to buy?" No, instead you're engaging them with a problem that you know they have, they've agreed they have, and now you're a partner in helping them solve it. So, Adir, great sales system, sir. How do we find out more about you, Walnut? How do we get into your world?
Yeah, so feel free to go to walnut.io and you can see everything there on our website, and feel free to connect me on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, and we'll definitely make sure that we tag you along the way so everybody can find your information, sir. Always good to connect with another sales professional. Of course, for us here at Bulletproof Selling, make sure you're following us on LinkedIn and YouTube, where every single one of these live streams is housed. And of course, the podcast we produce out of this: Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, anywhere that podcasts can be found. And for more sales systems to help you replace hope with certainty, make sure you're over at bulletproofselling.us for resources that we are updating every single day of the week. Well, Sean Rhodes here. It's been a pleasure serving the sales community alongside you, Adir. Let's get out there and make selling bulletproof.
Thank you.